Hey, what's up guys? It's TechZoomer talking to you here. And today I want to compare the iPhone 13 Pro Max against the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Yes, this is a comparison between my current flagship phone, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and the most current and newest iPhone ever, the iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is the upgrade to this phone. So Apple just released this on around the beginning of September, and this is my comparison between these two phones. Is it worth it to upgrade if you have an iPhone 13 Pro Max to an iPhone 14 Pro Max? And if you don't want to watch the whole video because you don't really have time to, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, because I will reveal the answer right now so you can be happy. Leave this video right after the beginning of the intro. So if you are excited, please type to videos where I will compare the display, the cameras, the design, the speakers, and every single metric on these phones so you understand if it's worth it to upgrade or not. Then do not forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, the full camera comparison will be on a separate video because that would be very long of a video to post. So I will show you some types of photos, some video, but it's not a full camera comparison. That one will come later this week. So if you are excited for that, do not forget to drop a like down below like I told you, subscribe to the channel. So no further ado, let's get started. So, as you know, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is my current flagship phone. It's my current phone. And will I upgrade to the iPhone 14 Pro Max? Right away, at the beginning of this video, like I promised you, I won't. And I won't advise you either. The differences between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 13 Pro Max are minor, even on the camera side, even on Dynamic Island also. So, if you were thinking of upgrading, my advice is not to. Save your money and try to buy the iPhone 15 next year. But if you want to still watch the rest of this comparison because you are interested on the differences between these two phones, and of course, if you want to know if there's a specific stuff that I'm missing out on and you think it's very important for you and you would upgrade because of that. So let's continue with this video. But like I told you, if you have an iPhone 13 Pro Max, do not buy the iPhone 14 Pro Max. In my opinion, it's not worth it. So let's talk about the differences between these two phones, shall we? Let's first talk about the design. The iPhone 13 Pro Max featured the same design as the iPhone 12 Pro Max. These new squared off sides that Apple introduced. This is a new design language that Apple introduced with the iPhone 12, and I gotta say, I got used to this and I like it a lot. It feels the phone more premium and more cool to look at and to use. The iPhone 14 Pro Max though features the same design. No changes in the design category. This is the next upgrade in terms of design. The changes come more of the inside of the phone and on the front. The design is still the same, it still has the same stainless steel sides, the same matte glass back, which is not glossy and it doesn't take any fingerprints, while the stainless steel sides do, and a lot. The iPhone 13 Pro Max comes with the Sierra Blue color, which is its special color. The iPhone 14 Pro Max came with a purple, deep purple actually, and this new space black. These are the colors for the iPhone 13 Pro Maxes and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. As you can see, these two phones are the Sierra Blue and the Space Black. I really like this Sierra Blue color, it's one of my favorites, while this Space Black, I think it's my iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max color favorite. In my opinion, which color is the best? Well, it's a very subjective thing, but I do think I still prefer my iPhone 13 Pro Max's Sierra Blue, because it's more eye-catching and I like it a lot. This is one of my favorite iPhone colors ever, taking aside the Alpine Green. I was very grateful when I saw that phone. But, like I was telling you, the designs are the same. This still features the same camera bumps, which I don't think it's the same because the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a huge camera bump, even bigger than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. If you put them right to the side of each other, you will see that. But the design is the same, the design trend is the same, and I do expect Apple to keep it at least maybe one more year, or they will change it next year. We are not sure. We are very big in the beginning of the leaks of the iPhone 15. So the design is the same. If you use an iPhone 14 Pro Max or an iPhone 13 Pro Max, after a week, you won't notice a big difference between these two phones, at least with the design of these two phones. The weight is about the same, the difference is about some micrograms, and the volume is the same. The thickness, the size, you can fit an iPhone 14 Pro Max on an iPhone 13 Pro Max case besides the camera bump. So, I mean, you have to decide. If you use the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you will still have the same feeling as using the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You won't be looking like a poor people. with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, if you know what I mean. But if you didn't notice any changes on the design from the back, from the front, you will. Because these two phones now feature very two different front side displays. As you know, the iPhone 14 Pro Max now has the dynamic island. This is the most appetizing thing about the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The dynamic island is a new type of notch. It's the new generation of the notch from Apple. This dynamic island is insane. It makes so much stuff that it makes the notch from the iPhone 13 Pro Max look obsolete. The thing is it enough to make you upgrade from the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max? And I don't think so. The dynamic island is good, don't get me wrong. It's a very good task manager. It makes iOS finally has a good task manager. It opens with your Face ID, it gets your notifications, your phone calls, it gets you the music app, we're up there while music playing, so it's a nice playing widget. It shows you the album art. It also shows you your timers. When your timers are playing, you can open it and cancel or start your timers or change the timers. It's very good. And you can manage two apps at the same time with the dynamic island. It's one of the best, not the best features of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And I do really think that these two phones are different. And you will notice the differences between these two phones just because of the dynamic island. But I gotta tell you, that's not the only upgrade. And in my opinion, the biggest upgrade on the display side of these two phones is actually the brightness. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has a top brightness of, I think it's 1200 nits or 1500 nits, I'm not sure, while this iPhone 14 Pro Max has a 2000 nit max brightness. And outside, you can notice the difference between these two is ridiculous. This phone is so much brighter for around 20 minutes. After that, it will overheat and then you will probably able to see anything. This phone happens the same. So the iPhones at max brightness outside, they have a very, very, very problem and a huge problem with overheating. But I don't really care. Inside, the display on this phone is so much brighter that I think that it's actually worth it to upgrade. If you consider that the display is your main thing. If you do really like the display, then you have two new features on your display that will entice you to upgrade. Actually three. I will talk about the third later. The brightness and the new dynamic island. These two alone make you upgrade for the iPhone 14 Pro Max if you do really like big, bright displays with small bezels, which the iPhone 14 Pro Max has small bezels than the iPhone 13 Pro Max, because on the top it's a little bit more rounder, so it shaves off a little bit of bezel. But nothing that you will notice right away. But the third feature, like I promised you, is always on display. If you can see right now, the always on display, it's turned on. It's very bright to be an always on display. And this one is very conflicting. At the beginning, I was thinking that it would be a game changer. I really like the always on display on the Apple Watch, and I was thinking that having an always on display on my iPhone would be cool. But now that I've been using the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I'm disappointed. This display is too bright, makes you think that your display is turned on. It shows you too much information, and by doing so, it eats into your battery life. This is one of a deal breaker for me for using an always on display. Eating too much of your battery life. And actually it's very annoying when you are not using your phone, you put it down and you have your display just showing users information. So I turned it off, only turned on for this video. So if you think that always on display would be a big thing for you, consider that this always on display, it's too much of always on. Apple, please fix this. It's an easy fix with software. I think you should make it a little bit darker, not show your wallpaper, just show your time and widgets and notifications. That's it, just like the Android phones. But the iPhone 13 Pro Max doesn't feature an always on display, which brings me to the next category. Of course, battery life. The battery life on these two phones is insane. These are the two best battery lives on the business, in my opinion. This one has a little bit smaller battery life than this one, so Apple just shrinked the size of the battery this year. But this one has a more efficient display. This one has a 1 Hz to 120 Hz capable of refresh rate display. This one has a 10 Hz to 120. So this one, when watching still images, can go to 1 Hz, while this one can go to 10. So the battery life, when you have always on display turned off, should be around the same. But in my experience and other YouTubers' experience, the battery life on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, when new, was better than the battery life that we are getting right now on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. That can be explained by three things. The always on display, if you have it on. The most power hungry display right now, which can reach 2000 nits, which it's a lot and eats into your battery. And the third factor, of course, is the smallest battery life and the smaller battery cell in general. Of course, the A16 chip is more efficient, and I will talk about the A16 versus the A15 debate here later. But even though these two phones should have similar battery life, my experience with the iPhone 13 Pro Max has been nor more than perfect. This phone has been insane for battery life, and I can't say the same for the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which has probably lasted me 3 hours less than this one. So this is a complete 2-day phone. This one is 1 day and a half, 1 day 75. I mean, at the end of the day, you will charge your phone every single day. So it doesn't matter if these two phones last more than 1 day. But it's still one thing to point out that the iPhone 13 Pro Max battery life is better than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I mean, it's normal, has bigger cameras, it has battery display, it has always on display, so it's normal that the battery life takes a little hit. This one had perfect battery life. This one has a very, very, very good battery life, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about the speakers, because it's a thing that not everyone is talking about, but I've noticed some differences. The iPhone 14 Pro Max speakers are louder, and in my opinion, fuller and with less noise. So they are better in every single category. So take a listen and let me know in the comments down below if you think the same as me, or if not, let me know in the comments down below.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Then, after speakers, we gotta talk about the performance. These two phones feature two different generations of chips. The iPhone 13 Pro Max features the A15, present on the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus, while the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max, as you see here, has the A16 chip. According to Apple, we haven't got any, as we say this, we haven't any direct comparison with the A15 present on this phone, so I decided to run some benchmarks on these two phones and got the results, and here they are. The difference in Geekbench scores is not that big. The iPhone 14 Pro Max has a jump of about 8% in single core performance and around 14% in multi-core performance, so not that much. As you saw, the results on these phones are not that much difference. The percentages are just ridiculous between these two phones, so expect more of a gain on efficiency and smart technologies, mainly on the camera side, from the A15. Not much in power side and in gaming, so I mean, I'm not seeing any types of real improvements, so these will get probably 1 more year of support. I don't know. The iPhones right now with these chips are so capable that I expect them to get 10 years of software support from iOS. But let's see in the future if that proves itself. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max does feature the A16 chip, while the iPhone 13 Pro Max features the A15. If that's a deal breaker for you, then go for the iPhone 14 Pro Max. For me, it isn't. Now we reach the most important part of this comparison, and the one that you are probably more expecting of, because the cameras are the biggest thing on smartphones right now. These two phones are cameras with a phone on it. It's a camera that can make phone calls, it's a camera that can go to Instagram, it's a camera that can go and edit some photos, it's a camera, mainly. So, what are the differences between these two phones and these two cameras? Well, they have the same 3 lenses, but with big differences. The first one is on the main lens. The main wide lens, it's very different on these two phones. This one has a 12 megapixel, while this one has a 48 megapixel. So this phone takes much sharper images when you are shooting in RAW. Yes, it's very important to tell you this, because this phone will default to 12 megapixel shots, and in those areas, well, in very light and good lighting, these two phones perform the same. There are almost no differences. But if you enable the RAW photo here, then you will get much more sharpness and much more detail on your small details if you zoom in on your photos. That's normal. That's a characteristic of having a bigger sensor that can capture more light and more detail on a 48 megapixel camera. Don't get me wrong though, this is a quad pixel sensor, so each pixel is actually 4 pixels working together, so the 48 megapixel shots will be converted to 12 megapixels, so the low light performance actually it's a little bit better here than it is here. Have some comparison as you can see. And the main camera, the wide camera, is always about the same. While this phone takes a little bit less time taking the photos, this phone is also a little bit better, corrects better the highlights, corrects better the shadows, it's less warm, it's more real to the thing. So I do think that the iPhone 13 Pro Max kind of loses to the iPhone 14 Pro Max in terms of night mode, of course in the wide camera, but I don't think it's justifiable. The video, I mean, it's the same. You saw some examples there on the audio recording where you can see that every single B-roll shot on this video from the iPhone 13 Pro Max was shot on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and every B-roll shot of the iPhone 14 Pro Max was shot on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So you have the examples during this video, you probably saw it, you probably didn't know it, and you probably didn't know the difference that these two phones were shooting the two parts of the video. So as you saw, the example is real. These two phones, the video performance is not that much difference. No, it was not ProRes, but in ProRes it's the same story. So at the end of the day, I do still think that in the main camera, only the 48 megapixel will make the difference. And of course the nighttime shots are very important. And of course in video you also have the action mode, which stabilizes you very well your footage. But this footage from here is also very well stabilized, as you can see. And I mean, at the end of the day, it requires less light, which is, this phone is very annoying. It's always asking for more light. Like, this is light hungry. And this phone also stabilizes the features very well. And at the end of the day, I don't really care about action mode. Just, it's not a big feature to upgrade myself. So at the end of the day, if you ask yourself, the main camera, which is the one that actually has the biggest changes on the 48 megapixel, is it worth it? Well, I don't think so if you are coming from the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Then we move to what I think is the biggest upgrade in terms of cameras, the ultra-wide camera. The ultra-wide camera, in my opinion now, has been much more improved than the main camera. The ultra-wide here is much more sharper, much more real, and much more connected to the main camera than this one here. The difference between the main camera and the ultra-wide camera here is way bigger than here. The macro shots are sharper, better focused. The ultra-wide shots are better, less grainy, less noisy. It performs better under less light. At night mode, the difference is just ridiculous. I have some examples here for you can see. During the night, this phone is much better. On the ultra-wide camera, like night and day difference. No pun intended, because it's less noisy, it has less grain, and it's better. It's just better. It just looks more like the wide camera with the ultra-wide point of view. So yes, the ultra-wide is the biggest upgrade in this camera system, in my opinion. And if you do really use your ultra-wide camera, then it might justify you to upgrade. But for myself, I use it sometimes from some B-roll, and I also recorded some B-roll with ultra-wide cameras, and as you saw, it's the same story. iPhone 13 Pro Max filmed the iPhone 14 Pro Max B-roll. The iPhone 14 Pro Max filmed the iPhone 13 Pro Max B-roll. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought about ultra-wide video and the differences between these two. I use my iPhone to record all of my videos. So the camera side, and especially the video side, is the most important part of the camera comparison. The telephoto is the same. It's the same 3x telephoto on each phone. The only difference is with the 48 megapixel camera here, you can now crop in 2 times on the 48 megapixel sensor, and you will get a 12 megapixel shot with a 2 times zoom. It's an optical zoom, so you get another zoom lens, which is actually pretty cool for taking portrait modes at 2 times. It's way better to take portrait modes at 2 times than 3 times. And the night mode portraits are a little bit better here, but they're also not that good in general, so I would not advise you using it. But if you do use it, then it's a little bit better on the iPhone 14 Pro Max compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. But remember, I will have a full camera comparison on my channel. As you know, this video is getting long. I cannot show you every single shot, so it will take me a lot of time. For that, I will work on a full camera comparison that will come out during the next week or at the end of this one. So if you are excited for that, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that video. We have now reached the final part of this comparison, which is it worth it to upgrade from the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max after all you saw? Well, I continue to say you, no, it isn't. The design, not that much difference. The display is where you will notice the biggest upgrade. Then the speakers are a little bit better here, but they're also amazing here. So not the speakers, not the design. What about the performance? The performance is even smaller of a difference. If it's for me, I don't really care about performance, but if it's for me, like it's the thing that I notice the smallest change is on the performance side. Then if you go for the cameras are good. Yes, the upgrade is significant in some aspects, like the ultra-wide camera and the 48 megapixel shots, But that's it. I don't see any more upgrades. One thing that I forgot to mention was cinematic mode at 4K and cinematic mode at 1080p. You also can shoot 20 frames per second now on cinematic mode here. While here is locked to 1080p at 30, here you can go for 4K 24, 4K 30, 1080p 30, 1080p 24. But that's it. I don't see any more changes on the camera. I don't see any more upgrades on the phones. And that's why I do not advise you, if you have an iPhone 13 Pro Max, to upgrade for the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You still have the promotion here, you still have the amazing camera, you still have ProRes, you still have the notch, which is smaller than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So I would advise you to upgrade for the iPhone 14 Pro Max if you have an iPhone 12 Pro Max or older. If you have an iPhone 12 Pro Max, you will get ProMotion, you will get the smaller notch, you will get ProRes, you will get better cameras, you will get a 3x telephoto, you will get a new ultra-wide camera, so you will get so much more upgrades than if you go for the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and that's why I don't advise you to upgrade from the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But let me know in the comments down below, which are your thoughts on this? Would you upgrade from the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max? Did you upgrade? Did you not? Which color do you prefer? Sierra Blue, Space Black? Let me know which is your favorite color from these two phones. And of course, while you're there, do not forget to subscribe, leave a like on my channel, and of course, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. This has been Tech Smart talking to you here. Bye.